Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lovefraud Live. You may sense that a friend, relative, or acquaintance is involved with a sociopath. Maybe you recognize the red flags, or maybe you yourself had a relationship with the same person. But when you try to warn them, they don't listen. I'm Donna Andersen, author of Lovefraud.com, and tonight I'll explain why it's so hard to warn people about sociopaths. At the end of this presentation, I'll answer your questions. To join the chat or ask a question, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I once heard from a Lovefraud reader who was married to an abusive sociopath for 25 years. Soon after she left him, he hooked up with another woman. My Lovefraud reader knew that he would become abusive again, and he did. The new woman endured the situation for several years and then escaped while he was out of the country. My Lovefraud reader reached out to her through a mutual friend to ask if she was okay. At that point, the new woman was thinking about returning to the relationship. My Lovefraud reader couldn't get involved, so she wished her well and said, "Know that you're not crazy." Well, with that, the woman decided not to return. The two women became friends, and my Lovefraud reader apologized for not warning her sooner. But after discussing it, the new woman realized that she wouldn't have believed a warning. Why not? Why is it so difficult for people to hear warnings about sociopaths? Here are 3 reasons. Number 1. Society's general lack of awareness about sociopaths. Most people do not understand what a sociopath is. Even worse, those who think they know what a sociopath is are often wrong. Those who may have any awareness about personality disorders may believe that sociopaths are all criminals or serial killers. So if you try to tell someone that his or her new love interest is a sociopath, and that person hasn't done jail time or murdered anyone, you sound like nothing more than a spiteful ex. Even if you try to avoid this pitfall by not referring to the person as a sociopath, you face another problem. Our society doesn't even have an awareness that evil exists. Most of us don't know that people can appear to be loving and caring when in reality they are exploiters. People who are unaware that human predators live among us will have difficulty believing that their new partner, who appears to be so charming, is actually dangerous. Here's number 2. The sociopath has primed the next target not to believe you. Do you remember how your ex described his or her romantic partners before you? Most likely it was negative. The person was abusive, overbearing, cold-hearted, demanding, unstable, mentally ill, delusional, etc. Well, that's how your ex is now describing you. When sociopaths trash their previous romantic partners, they are really, really convincing. Everything was your fault. The sociopath did the best he or she could, but there was no pleasing you. You are a gold digger, a cheater, or some other kind of nasty person. The new partner is appalled at how badly you supposedly treated the sociopath. The new partner already dislikes you, perhaps even hates you, even though you've never met. So, is this person going to be receptive to a message from you? Not likely. Here's reason number 3. The new partner may be being love bombed. the sociopath may still be showering the new target with attention and affection. And who doesn't like being placed on a pedestal? If someone is saying, "I love you," who doesn't want to believe it? So, while the sociopath is promising a lifetime of happily ever after, is the new target actually going to give up the dream and believe you? Probably not. Now, if it's later in the involvement and the new target has already begun to experience the dark side of the sociopath, well, then he or she may be more willing to listen. So, if you believe someone is involved with a sociopath, what should you do? In my opinion, you should, if you can warn safely, you should at least try. Now, the key here is if you can warn safely. Now, understand that your first responsibility is to yourself. You need to protect your reputation, your finances, your livelihood, your court case, your children, and your recovery. So if your situation will be jeopardized in any way by saying something to the new target, don't do it. But if you do feel safe and you do attempt to warn the new target, one of three things will happen. First, the target will believe you and get out. Second, the target will not believe you and stay. And third, the target won't believe you right away, but will remember your warning later on and then perhaps get out. Here's the important point. You need to be able to accept whatever happens. If you're able to help the target escape, terrific. If the person doesn't heed your warning, you need to be satisfied with the fact that at least you tried. If you later hear that the person escaped, maybe your warning was partly responsible. Now, many people, including many Lovefraud readers, say that no one should ever try to warn the new target. They say the person will not listen and you'll be wasting your time and emotional energy. Well, I say maybe that's true and maybe not. Here's why I think it's important to at least try. Not only could you possibly help the new target, but you could help address the first problem that I brought up in this video: society's general lack of awareness about sociopaths. As a culture, we don't talk about sociopaths. We don't explain what they really are and how they exploit us. And this lack of discussion, this black hole of ignorance, is what enables sociopaths to keep finding new victims. So I recommend that you all educate yourselves about sociopaths. Yes, you've already learned about them the hard way, but really research the topic, learn the traits, learn the warning signs. I encourage everyone to understand the disorder enough so that you can talk about it in a calm, informed way. And then, when an opportunity arises, explain what you know. That's how we warn people, one conversation at a time. That's the presentation for tonight. Next, I'll be answering your questions. And also, if you want in-depth advice for your own personal situation, I do offer personal consultations and a new service for deep emotional release, in which I help you to process the wounds from your experience. Okay, looks like we have a few comments. Okay, so Tiny Face McGee says, advice for a girl living in a small town with her ex. I feel so paranoid looking over my shoulder, fearful that he's going to come up to me. He's been sending love letters in the mail. 2 months, no contact. Okay, yes. The advice is that for you to continue to work on your own personal healing. If you are in a small town, yeah, there's the possibility that you're going to run across this guy. And you need to get to the point where it doesn't upset you. It doesn't get under your skin. So the way that you do that is, first of all, make up your mind that you're completely finished and you will have no further contact with him. So it sounds like you've taken that step, so that's good. Secondly, what you want to do is envision in your mind a possibility of where you might run into this person, and practice in your mind what your response will be. Okay? Now, the correct response is to, go the other way or ignore him, or, maybe it's best to just kind of acknowledge him and then go away, or whatever. But you need to prep yourself internally. You need to think about, okay, if I run into him in the grocery store, what will I do? Well, you could turn your cart down another aisle. You could leave the store and come back another time. You could, just ignore him and drive the cart right past him, or whatever. So if he speaks to you, you could say something to the effect of, I have nothing to say to you, leave me alone, or something along those lines. Whatever works for you. But the idea is to have a plan in place so that should you come across this guy, you know what you want to do. Now, that's the first step. The second step is to continue to work on your own recovery. You need to get to the emotional tension that you're still carrying around because of this person. You need to let out the emotions appropriately, which means allowing yourself to cry or allowing yourself to express anger appropriately. And what that means is that you don't express anger to him, because that's useless, and essentially that'll just, give him a hit of narcissistic supply, because what that means to him is that he still has an effect on you, which you don't want. You want to get to the point where he has no effect on you. Now, it can take some time, and you want to keep bringing up those emotions, from whatever your experiences were, and then releasing them and getting to the point where he just doesn't matter anymore. He just, you think about him, you roll your eyes that, there he goes again, or something like that. And that's your recovery. And that's actually, you want to do this anyway, because that's how you're going to be able to move on to an involvement that would be right for you, that would be a good person. So you want to clear out all the leftover angst from this relationship and get it out of your system. And then if you see him, you say, hey, goodbye, see you later, something like that. So it sounds to me like the main issue is you're not through with the recovery yet. You're still working on that. So just keep going. Just keep working on your recovery. Okay, so Tiny Face says again, he doesn't believe that it's over because we broke up and got back together so many times. And that's exactly why it's so important for you to be firm that you're done with this person, you're not going back, and just to make up your mind that it's over. And, should you cross paths, you have your rehearsed, canned response to him, and that's what you do. Okay, so Gerard says, one of the problems I found was that people said, oh, come on, she's not that bad. You're exaggerating. Isolation becomes a big problem. Yes, and you're right. That happens a lot. And it happens because the other people don't know what's going on behind closed doors. That's just the way it is. They see whatever the person projects when they're out among people, but they don't see what happened when the two of you were alone together or something like that. And there's not a whole lot you can do about that. And again, it's just a matter of getting to the point that you're confident in your decision to leave this person. You're confident in your decision that you don't want anything more to do with them. And, some people won't be able to be convinced, and you'll just have to be okay with that. So it is important that people who are important to you understand what's going on to the extent that they can, because sometimes, even your own family members don't get it. If it goes back to that original problem, when people don't really understand what a sociopath is and haven't had the misfortune to come across them themselves, then they can have difficulty understanding what the big deal is all about. And so you just kind of have to roll with it. If you can get people to understand, terrific. If people don't understand, well, it's unfortunate, because unfortunately they may have to find out the hard way. The fact of the matter is that approximately 12% of the population is disordered. We're all going to run across these people sooner or later. So, you hope that people don't have bad experiences, but sometimes they do. That's what happened to all of us. We had a bad experience, and now we know what's going on. So, unfortunately, a lot of people have to learn the hard way. So Marcia asks, did Terry understand your problems with the ex-husband sociopath? Yeah, I would say that he did. Of course, by the time Terry and I got together, I had a pretty good understanding of what was going on. And I had also worked on my recovery quite a bit. See, this is the thing, is that it can be very difficult to explain to people what the sociopath was like and what your experience was like when you're so worked up about it. When you still are upset, when you're still afraid, when you still haven't gotten it out of your system. Because what happens is that people react to your upset and they can't hear what you're saying. They react to the fact that, you're crying, or you're worked up, or you're angry, or whatever. And, that can be like a lot of emotion coming at you, and people may not be able to tolerate it. So what happens is they shut down and they can't help you, and they also can't even hear you. They can't hear what you're saying. And that's why it's so important to be able to educate yourself and to learn how to talk about folks, these sociopaths, in a calm, cool, collected manner, because that's when people can hear it. They can't hear you when you're so upset. It's too upsetting to them, and frankly, it's scary to them. People have a hard time with high levels of emotion, but when you can process it out of yourself, so that you can be calm in talking about it, then you'll have a much better chance of educating people about the sociopaths who live among us. So Christine says, I wonder how they feel if they don't win you over. Well, I imagine you're referring there to sociopaths, and you're wondering how sociopaths feel if they are unsuccessful in targeting you. And I would say that if you're, a new target that they're trying to hook up and you don't take the bait, they're just like, oh, well, and they move on to the next one. Because sociopaths are typically, they've got a lot of hooks out all the time. And that's what sociopaths do, especially if they're on the internet or on a dating app or something like that. They're just keep putting those hooks out, casting that line, and see who bites. And the people who don't bite, oh, well, there's always the next one. So I would say that they probably don't get very upset about the fish that got away because they know that there's all these other fish. That's for like a new conquest. In the cases where you were involved and then you get away, it can be a little more difficult because the sociopaths tend to view their former partners and family members or whatever as property. And sometimes they don't want to lose their property. There can be much more of a reaction when you escape after a prolonged involvement. But, somebody who they weren't able to reel you in, oh well, they just move on to the next one. Okay, so that appears to be all the questions that we have for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Lovefraud Live, and we'll be back here next Tuesday for the next Lovefraud Live. Good night.